My brother used my identity to open credit cards, so I waited until he bought a house, then reported everything in his name. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for most of my life, my older brother, Eric, could do no wrong. He was the kind of person people gravitated toward: charming, funny, effortlessly confident. My parents adored him. My dad used to say, Eric's got leadership in his blood, while I was the one who needed to come out of his shell. I didn't resent him, not at first. I actually wanted to be like him. I was the responsible one, the quiet one who made sure the bills got paid and the house didn't fall apart when things got messy. When Eric forgot to pick up Mom's medication, I drove across town to do it. When he spent his paycheck on weekend trips, I'd lend him money to get by. I told myself it wasn't enabling, it was love, because that's what good brothers do, right? They help each other. One memory sticks out. I was 19, working part-time while taking classes, and Eric called me from a bar. Hey man, he slurred, can you send me $50? I left my wallet at home. I did, of course. When I told my mom later, she said, you're such a good brother. Eric's lucky to have you. Those words used to fill me with pride. Now, they just make me sick. Eric had this talent for making his problems feel like mine. When he failed, I felt like I had failed him. Every time he promised to pay me back, I believed him, because I needed to believe he wasn't just using me. I wanted to believe our bond meant something deeper than money or convenience. Loyalty can blind you. It makes you ignore the cracks until they become fractures. I didn't realize that loyalty would one day destroy my credit and nearly my life. It started small, so small I almost missed it. A random letter showed up at my apartment one morning from a credit card company I didn't recognize. It was addressed to me, but the return address was my parents' house. I assumed it was junk mail, maybe a mix-up, and tossed it. A few weeks later, a bank called, asking to verify recent activity on an account I'd never opened. I remember laughing nervously and saying, "You've got the wrong guy." That night, I called Eric just to mention it. "Hey, weird question," I said. "Did you ever use my name for anything? Like an account, or..." He interrupted with that familiar laugh. "Bro, no. Why would I need your name? You'd barely have credit." He said it jokingly, but something about his tone made my stomach twist. Still, I brushed it off. Eric always joked like that. When I told my parents, my dad chuckled. "You probably signed up for something online and forgot." My mom added, "You worry too much, honey. Eric's the one who actually manages his money." That stung more than I wanted to admit. But then there were more calls, more verification, requests and past due notices for accounts I'd never opened. My inbox filled with spam from banks I'd never used. I tried to convince myself it was some clerical error. Maybe someone out there just had the same name as me. One evening, I brought it up again during dinner. Eric smirked and said, "You really need to chill, man. Not everything's a conspiracy." Everyone laughed, even my parents. I forced a smile, pretending to laugh along. But inside, something cracked. I wanted to believe my family, believe him, but deep down, something felt off. The signs were all there. I just wasn't ready to see them yet. And that denial, it would cost me more than I could ever imagine. It all came crashing down the day I tried to buy a car. I'd saved for months, planning to finally trade in my old beat-up Honda for something reliable. But when the dealer ran my credit, he looked at me like I'd just handed him a fake ID. "Sir," he said carefully, "your credit score is really low, and you've got over 30 grand in unpaid debt." I laughed because it had to be a mistake. "That's impossible," I said. "I don't even have a credit card." But he just turned the screen toward me, and there it was. My name, my social security number, tied to multiple credit cards, personal loans, and even a store account. My chest went cold. I remember my hands shaking as I asked for a printout. That night, I stayed up combing through my credit report. Page after page of debt that wasn't mine, cards opened years ago. Transactions I never made, payments to places I'd never even heard of. Then I saw an address listed under secondary contact, my parents' address, and a phone number I recognized immediately. Eric's. When I confronted him, he didn't even look surprised. He rolled his eyes and said, "Dude, calm down. It's not a big deal. I was just building credit for both of us. You'll thank me later," I snapped. "You stole my identity, Eric. You're ruining my life," he scoffed. "Oh, please. You're being dramatic." I turned to my parents for help, hoping they'd finally see the truth, but they didn't. My dad frowned at me. "You need to stop accusing your brother. He'd never do that." My mom added, "Eric said he was helping you. Why are you being so ungrateful?" I stood there, surrounded by people I loved, realizing none of them believed me. And for the first time in my life, I saw Eric's real smile, cold, smug, and satisfied. That's when I knew I was on my own. It all came crashing down the day I tried to buy a car. I'd saved for months, planning to finally trade in my old beat-up Honda for something reliable. But when the dealer ran my credit, he looked at me like I'd just handed him a fake ID. "Sir," he said carefully, "your credit score is really low, and you've got over 30 grand in unpaid debt." I laughed because it had to be a mistake. "That's impossible," I said. "I don't even have a credit card." But he just turned the screen toward me, and there it was. My name, my social security number, tied to multiple credit cards, personal loans, and even a store account. My chest went cold. I remember my hands shaking as I asked for a printout. That night, I stayed up combing through my credit report. Page after page of debt that wasn't mine, cards opened years ago. Transactions I never made, payments to places I'd never even heard of. Then I saw an address listed under secondary contact, my parents' address, and a phone number I recognized immediately. Eric's. When I confronted him, he didn't even look surprised. He rolled his eyes and said, "Dude, calm down. It's not a big deal. I was just building credit for both of us. You'll thank me later," I snapped. "You stole my identity, Eric. You're ruining my life," he scoffed. "Oh, please. You're being dramatic." I turned to my parents for help, hoping they'd finally see the truth, but they didn't. My dad frowned at me. "You need to stop accusing your brother. He'd never do that." My mom added, "Eric said he was helping you. Why are you being so ungrateful?" I stood there, surrounded by people I loved, realizing none of them believed me. And for the first time in my life, I saw Eric's real smile, cold, smug, and satisfied. That's when I knew I was on my own. I spent the next few weeks turning my life into a crime board. Every night after work, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by printed bank statements, highlighters, and sticky notes. I cross-checked every transaction, every account, every date. My walls were covered in timelines and arrows, all leading to one name, Eric. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. He hadn't just opened one or two cards, he'd created a whole financial identity using my name. There were online purchases, loan applications, even a credit inquiry for a car he'd never mentioned owning. It was like watching someone live an alternate version of my life while I struggled to breathe in the wreckage he left behind. Finally, I called one of the banks listed on my report. The woman on the line sounded sympathetic but firm. "Sir, these accounts were opened with your social security number and a phone number ending in 34 to 76. My throat tightened. That was Eric's number. I asked if they could send me proof, and when the email came through, my hands shook so badly I could barely click. Asterisk there, it was his email, his address, his phone number, tied to every fraudulent account. I had everything I needed, proof, undeniable, solid proof. But when I held that stack of papers, I didn't feel victorious. I felt sick, because the next step meant filing a report. Turning in my own brother, I remember sitting in my car outside the police station, engine running, heart pounding. I thought about the fallout my parents' faces, the family dinners that would never happen again. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not yet. Instead, I went home and placed all the documents in a folder labeled Eric. I hid it in my closet behind an old shoebox. I told myself I'd act when I was ready, but deep down, I knew I wasn't saving him. I was giving him time to dig the hole deeper. Months passed, and I tried to move on, tried to bury the anger, focus on rebuilding what I could. But one Saturday morning, my mom called, her voice bubbling with excitement. "You'll never believe it." She said, "Eric's buying a house." I froze. She laughed like it was the dumbest question in the world. "He's worked so hard. His credit's amazing, and the bank approved him instantly. We're so proud of him." That sentence hit me like a gut punch. His credit, my name, my number, my destroyed record funding his success. At the family dinner that evening, Eric strutted in like a celebrity. He handed out drinks, showing off the photos of his dream home on his phone. A 2-story house with a yard, a deck, even a garage. My dad clapped him on the back, saying, "You've made it, son." And me, I just sat there, smiling through gritted teeth while my stomach churned. Eric caught my eye from across the table and smirked. That smug, knowing smirk that said, "You won't do anything. You never do." When he raised his glass for a toast to family, everyone cheered, everyone except me. I just stared at my reflection in the wine, realizing I was watching a thief being celebrated as a success story. That night, I went home and pulled out the folder, the one labeled Eric. I spread everything across the table documents. For the first time, I didn't see my brother on those pages. I saw a stranger. I whispered to myself, if he can build a future off my name, I can end it with the truth. It was the first time I stopped feeling guilty about what I had to do. The first time I felt anger burn hotter than fear. And that anger, it was the beginning of the end for Eric. After that dinner, something in me changed. I stopped being the brother who made excuses. I became the brother who planned in silence. Every evening after work, I researched how to report identity theft, how to freeze credit, how to trace fraud. My laptop became my war room. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep Eric's scheme ran and how many lies he'd built on top of mine. I started contacting the banks one by one, explaining the situation. Some were helpful, others skeptical, but slowly, I began collecting formal documentation of every fraudulent account. When one bank representative said, "We'll need to verify the alternate contact," I gave them Eric's number. There was a pause, then a quiet, "Sir, we've spoken to this number before." That was all I needed to hear. Meanwhile, Eric acted like nothing had happened. He'd call our parents every night, updating them about paint colors, furniture, shopping, and mortgage payments. "You should see the view from the balcony," he bragged. My mom would gush, "You deserve it, sweetheart, deserve it." The word made my teeth clench. I stopped talking to them for a while, saying I was busy. What I was really doing was building a timeline, dates, transactions, phone records. I even met with a financial investigator who confirmed what I already knew. This isn't a mistake. It's deliberate. Eric must have sensed the shift. One night he texted, "Hey, everything good between us? You've been quiet?" I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "Everything's fine," because it was fine at least for now. The storm hadn't started yet, but I could feel it coming. I knew I couldn't stop what he'd done to me in the past, but I could decide what happened next. And next was payback. The storm hit harder than I ever imagined. It started with a knock on my apartment door. A man in a suit holding a clipboard. "Are you my full name?" he asked. When I nodded, he handed me an envelope. A collection notice. Thousands in unpaid balances. My hands went numb. Over the next few weeks, more letters came, threats of legal action, phone calls from debt collectors at all hours. I tried explaining to them. It wasn't me. It was identity theft, but they didn't care. To them, I was just another deadbeat trying to dodge responsibility. One collector even said, "You can't just blame a fake story for 30 grand, sir." That line broke something inside me. Then came the final blow. I applied for an apartment closer to work somewhere to start fresh and got denied. "Credit score too low," the agent said, sliding my file back to me with a polite smile that felt like a knife. I walked out into the parking lot, sat in my car, and just stared at the steering wheel. I'd always been the responsible one, the quiet, reliable one. And now I looked like a liar, a failure. That night, I called my parents, desperate for a shred of support. My mom sighed. "You're still hung up on that? Honey, Eric says he offered to help you pay things off." I almost laughed. "He caused this." My dad cut in sharply. "Enough. Stop blaming your brother. He's doing fine. You need to fix your own mess." That was the moment I realized I didn't have a family anymore. Not really. Just a bloodline that valued charm over truth. I hung up, sat in the dark, and whispered to myself, if no one believes me now, they'll believe me when everything burns. And I meant it. That night marked the shift. Something cold and steady settled inside me, clarity. I stopped trying to explain myself and started preparing to expose him. I gathered every document, every email, every statement, and organized them into folders labeled by bank name. I made backups of everything, digital copies, printed copies, even one hidden flash drive taped under my desk. Eric had built his empire off my identity. But now, I was building his downfall. The first step was filing official reports. I contacted the FTC, the credit bureaus, and finally, law enforcement. When the investigator asked, "Do you know who might be responsible?" I handed over the folder labeled Eric. His eyebrows lifted when he saw the evidence. "This is detailed," he said. "If what you're claiming checks out, he's in serious trouble." Hearing those words felt like oxygen after months of drowning. Meanwhile, I played it cool. I called Eric casually, pretending to make peace. "Hey man, I've been thinking," I said, keeping my tone light. "Maybe I overreacted about the credit thing." He chuckled. "Told you, bro. No hard feelings. Family first, right?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile he couldn't see. Family first. What he didn't know was that every call, every text from that point on, I documented. I even recorded one where he slipped up and admitted to borrowing my info for a few cards. That one sentence was gold. Over the next few weeks, I coordinated quietly with the investigator, timing everything perfectly. I wanted the report filed, the documents verified, and the investigation locked in right around the same time his mortgage closed. I wasn't just exposing him anymore. I was planning poetic justice because if Eric could take my name to build his dream, I'd use that same name to tear it all down. It happened faster than I expected. 2 weeks after his mortgage finalized, Eric called me out of nowhere. His voice, usually smooth and cocky, was shaking. "Bro, something's wrong with the bank," he said. "They froze my account." I stayed silent for a moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Really?" I said, playing dumb. "That's weird. Maybe they found something." The silence on his end was heavy. "Then, what did you do?" By then, it was already out of my hands. The investigation had kicked in full force. The banks flagged every account tied to my stolen identity. And because Eric used the same information for his loan, the fraud department pulled everything for review. Within days, his dream house was locked under legal scrutiny. Payments stopped. Access denied. My parents called me that night, frantic. "What's going on with your brother's house?" He said the bank's accusing him of fraud. My dad's voice was full of panic. My mom was crying. I didn't sugarcoat it, because he did commit fraud. "I told you. I've been telling you for months." My father went quiet. For the first time, he didn't have a defense ready. My mom whispered, "You didn't. You didn't report him, did you?" I said nothing. The silence was my answer. Eric tried to call again, over and over, but I let it ring. When I finally checked my voicemail, his voice was hoarse with rage. "You think you won, huh? You ruined my life." But I didn't feel triumphant, just hollow. Watching someone you once loved unraveled it doesn't bring joy. It just brings peace. His empire, built on lies and stolen trust, was crumbling, and I didn't lift a finger to stop it. He'd taken my name to build a fantasy. Now that same name was dragging his world into ruin. The aftermath felt surreal. One morning, I woke up to a call from the investigator. "We've completed verification," he said. "All fraudulent accounts have been confirmed under your brother's identity usage. Law enforcement will proceed with charges." His tone was professional, detached, but to me, those words carried the weight of a lifetime. Eric's downfall spread fast. The mortgage was revoked, his credit froze, and every fraudulent card he'd opened under my name was shut down. He couldn't withdraw money, couldn't pay bills. His life, once built on stolen foundation, began collapsing overnight. My parents didn't know how to process it. My dad called me first, his voice shaking. "They're saying Eric might face prison time. Please, son, can't you do something? He's still your brother." I wanted to feel sympathy, but I couldn't. "He stopped being my brother when he stole my life," I said quietly. I tried to forgive him. "You all made me the fool for trusting him." My mom sobbed in the background, whispering, "You didn't have to ruin him." I closed my eyes and replied, "He ruined himself." The next day, I got a text from Eric. No excuses this time, just raw fury. "You destroyed me. I hope you're proud." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back, "You stole from me, lied to me, and made me hate myself. I didn't destroy you. Eric, you did that when you chose greed over family." I hit send and blocked his number. In the following weeks, I started rebuilding my credit. Slowly, piece by piece, my name became mine again. It felt like reclaiming my identity not just legally, but emotionally. For the first time in years, I could finally breathe. But I knew one thing for sure: nothing between us would ever be the same again. It's been almost a year since everything came crashing down. And sometimes I still wake up expecting another call from a debt collector. Old habits die hard. But the silence, now the peace sits, something I don't take for granted anymore. My credit is slowly recovering, my finances are stable again, and I've moved into a small apartment that's completely mine. No shared accounts, no fake names, just mine. My parents barely talk about what happened. When they do, it's in hushed tones, like Eric's downfall was some family tragedy rather than justice. My dad finally apologized, though it came out awkwardly over dinner one night. "We should have believed you," he said, eyes fixed on his plate. My mom just nodded, tears welling up. I didn't say much back. Some wounds don't heal with apologies, they just scar over. Eric's out on probation now. He lost his job, his house, and his perfect image. I heard through a mutual friend that he's renting a small apartment downtown, trying to start over. He hasn't reached out since that last text, and honestly, I'm okay with that sometimes. I wonder if he ever feels remorse or if he still thinks I betrayed him. But I've stopped trying to understand his version of family. Because for the first time in my life, I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone hurt you again. It means walking away and never looking back. One evening, I stood by my window, watching the city lights flicker, and whispered to myself, "You took everything from me, Eric, but you gave me something too, my strength, my boundaries, my name. Justice didn't fix the past, but it gave me back what mattered most, myself. And that, in the end, was worth everything."